All right, hello. I am sitting here with Marilyn. And Marilyn, I'm going to have you pronounce your last name so I don't get it wrong. Go ahead and tell us what your full name is.
I'm Marilyn Schoeman.
Schumann. Okay, I thought so, but I wasn't sure. Marilyn and I met at the eWomen Network annual conference, and Marilyn had a really interesting game that did you create the game, or was it you and your friend together?
No, I created the game several years ago as a card game and then later turned it into an app and also a board game.
Yeah, and for a game that wouldn't usually catch my interest, but I was so fascinated with what you had to offer. And so I would just love it, Marilyn, if you could share with us a little bit about who you are, how maybe you came up with this idea, and then tell us a little bit about BOFFO. Is it BOFFO? BOFFO?
BOFFO,
BOFFO, yeah. So go ahead and just
yes.
introduce you and BOFFO to us.
All right. I enjoy helping people make good things happen. And I do that in several ways by presentations and by one on one coaching and by various products that I have as well. And in particular, with the board game that you experienced, I I have the great joy of watching people amaze themselves with how creative they can be just right on the spot. And that's what BOFFO is all about. BOFFO stands for Brain on Fast Forward. And if you
Nice.
look up the word in the dictionary, BOFFO, it will say a popular gift or a success. And so that's what you become as soon as you are playing the BOFFO game, because it does put your brain on fast forward. It causes you to think faster and more creatively and have more breakthroughs than you've probably ever experienced in your life.
That's so fantastic. I love anything that has to do with boosting my brain. I love studying, I love learning, I love thinking. And creativity used to be something that I felt like I was good at copying other people. I didn't feel like I was necessarily creative. And the more I've studied and the more I've really pondered, every single person is creative. We come from a creative place, and so we're naturally creative. We just haven't all practiced. We haven't all exercised that creative bone. And I remember when I talked to you how excited I felt at the possibilities of, you know, um, working my creativity muscle and seeing where ideas could come from. And it's just so fascinating. So, um, tell us a little bit about Boffo then and how you came to. I mean, you told us what the philosophy is, but how does it work and how did it come to your awareness? How did you create Boffo?
Well, thanks for that question because years ago I was working for an educational agency, a state agency, and I was asked to promote creative thinking and creative problem solving among educators so they could promote that for their students. And I was not finding the kind of materials I wanted to do that with. And so I naively started creating them. And what I wanted was for people to not only be creative, but to recognize their ability to do it and to recognize also that they could do it on the spot predictably. So, another aspect that comes into play with creativity is that we know that children are highly creative, but it doesn't take us very long to squash that and to squeeze it out of them. So many people have been withholding their creativity because they've been in spaces where it wasn't safe to be creative. And so here is not only a space where you can be creative, also the tool that makes it possible for you to know absolutely, yes, you can come up with breakthrough ideas very quickly. And when you play the game of Bafo, one of the elements that's built into that is extremely powerful is the language that we use that fosters trust, that creates the environment that encourages risk taking. And so in this environment, it's called red light if somebody is critical or arguing or put somebody's ideas down. It's green light to be providing encouragement and support and adding information that is an additive factor to the idea. So when we play BOFFO, we play only in a green light manner, which makes it easier, more lighthearted, and not only more safe, but because it's more safe, more of the ideas that pop into people's heads actually get shared.
Yeah, I remember still, you had explained the philosophy to me, and I was looking at the game, and I still wasn't sure that it would work. I guess I was a little, what's the word, hesitant to believe that it would really work. And so you had me play just a couple rounds. And so, why can you explain what happens and what that is like, so that we can, yeah, so that people can understand what happens? It really blew me away. That's why I was like, I need to interview you because this is really fascinating.
Number one, our brains are so incredibly powerful, and for the most part, we only use a tiny bit of it. And so this game helps us use huge amounts of it. So you take a thing that is a launcher and you combine it with an action, which is a booster. So you take a launcher and a booster and put it together to make something new. For example, one person picked the launcher of robot and the booster of make waterproof. And she said, oh, I want a waterproof robot. And so I said, well, great. So what would you like to do with that? And she thought a moment and she said, teach people to swim. So I thought, wow, that's an intriguing idea. And it was just seconds for her to come up with that. And then as we played the game a little bit more, we add a third element, which is a target card where you put the idea to work. So in that case, then she had a waterproof robot that would teach people to swim, and she picked the target card, the actual target of social situations. And that made her think, oh, we should have parties to teach people to swim. And what I especially loved about that aha, which is what you get when you put a launcher and a booster together, is that you think of new possibilities that you wouldn't have otherwise, and that triggers other possibilities, and more happens from that. And so as I've shared this particular aha with people, amazing conversations come up, one of which is, oh, that's a social justice issue. And so that they talked about people having no access to learning to swim as a child. And as a result, there are many dangerous situations that kids get into that if they had had the opportunity to be taught by a robot or whatever to swim at an early age, they would have been much safer in the water.
Okay, so I mean that right there is fascinating, and still the question in my mind was at the time, and I can feel that it would be. So how would you use this in an actual situation? How would we apply this process to our own lives, or what would someone do other than just playing a game? How can that actually apply to our real life situations?
Well, let me tell you about another person who was playing BOFFO. And he is a property manager. He picked his first launcher of security. And the booster he picked was reward. And he put security and reward together. And it made him think, oh my gosh, he has a property that has 70 apartments in it, and he said, we want to have controlled access in our building. So in order for us to do that, if we can reward people for helping us with security, we will have a much more successful controlled access. So he was very excited about that. And then when it came to picking a target, he picked the target of, what was his target? Gosh. Oh, promote harmony. Promote harmony. And they said, wow, this is going to cause us to be more of a community together. And so here he was as a property manager, not looking for a solution, not focused on that, but his very first aha gave him a breakthrough. So that's one way. And another is to say, okay, here is my challenge, whatever it happens to be in business or in your personal life or whatever. And then you start playing with the launcher cards and the booster cards, and you create ahas that address your particular challenge. And that gets really, really fun because Your brain is making new connections and it's pulling things together that have never been pulled together before. And through the result of that, you are getting new perspectives. Very often you get solutions for things you weren't looking for, in addition to new possibilities for breakthroughs that you did want. And the thing that is most exciting is you can sit down and play this with no purpose in mind, and within a few minutes, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I could quit right now, and I've got enough benefits already from having played this. So also, you can take a look at the booster cards and apply that to your own life and just pick one of those. Maybe it says change container, and you decide, oh, in my life, what could it mean to change container? Maybe it means that I need to change my home. Or maybe it means I need to take another look at how I convey who I really am. Am I in a small container? Or do I need to release my container? All kinds of possibilities can come that way.
Wow. So do you have people playing BOFFO in family settings, individual settings, business settings? How do you present it to most people, or how do most people actually use it? Does that make sense?
Sure. One of the board game is set up so that you can have 9 people playing at a time, and we recommend that you have 3 teams of 3 people, and then you play as a team. So every time you are creating ahas, you have 2 other people that are partnering with you to create those ahas. And then every time you create an aha, when it's your turn, you move spaces along the board game. And every time you get an aha, that's worth 50 BOFFO bucks. When you hit a target, every target you hit on your turn is worth 20 BOFFO bucks. So as you play this game, you are not only making ahas, you're racking up dollars to come to the end of the game. When the first person comes into the winner's circle, then you are able to say, okay, the game is ended, let's count our money, and the one who has the most money is the Wizard of Wealth. So when you were playing this, you are also speaking the green light language, you are taking green light actions, and you are also, because of what I call the green light goal, which is to create the greatest good for the most people in the best way for the longest time, because of that goal, you are thinking more expansively, you are thinking more optimistically, you are thinking in ways that are all about creating more goodness in the world. So the red light stuff just kind of falls away very quickly at the beginning of the game. And what also is really important about this is that it helps get rid of negativity very quickly. Negativity is very red light, and in this situation especially, it is unacceptable, it is undesirable to be in a negative space. And so if that happens, somebody will just tap the table and say, okay, how do we green this up here? And very quickly we return to a space of being upbeat and focused on how do we optimally create a solution here.
That's great. So I see that it could be used for a lot of different reasons. Number one, to build that creative muscle. Team building among businesses and families even, right? Cooperation and learning how to work together in a peaceful way, in a green light manner. Are there any other things that I'm missing? Any other applications where people are using it to promote even more beneficial habits than I mentioned already?
Well, there are several ways to use it. One of which is if you play BOFFO for like 5 minutes before you start a meeting, your brain will be ramped up. You will be thinking much more creatively, and you will also have better interaction with your teammates so that the conversations that flow from that are better. Also, if you have 2 departments that now are merged into one, or 2 companies that have been merged into one, this is a fabulous tool to use because you have a new language learned together. So you are creating collectively a new culture. So that's a particularly powerful way to use it. Also, if you are having a meeting where you have a very serious challenge, one organization that I was working with had a strike to deal with, and so they were using the BOFFO process and the green light language to address how do they resolve this strike situation. Also, after you've played it a few times, you get into it so much faster that you could be in a meeting and just take a 3-minute break and say, okay, we're going to play BOFFO for 3 minutes, see what you come up with. And just by doing that, you have again caused new thoughts to arise. And you create that culture and you keep feeding that culture that truly encourages and rewards people being creative. And one other thing that's a super bonus is that playing BOFFO is not only good for your brain and good for solutions, but it's literally physiologically good for you too. Because when you're playing BOFFO, when you're using your green light thinking and actions, you are turning on the feel-good biochemicals of dopamine and serotonin, and you are turning off the stressor biochemicals of adrenaline and cortisol. So every way you play it, you're winning.
Yeah, sounds like a win-win-win. That's really great. So do you go into different businesses and teach them what BOFFO is and how to use it, in like team meeting type situations? How do you present it and how can people get a hold of it?
All right, great. Yes, I work with them, and there are also facilitators that will provide that service as well. And the game is self-contained. You don't have to have a facilitator. It's helpful if you do. And ideally, after you've played it a little while, a few times, you'll find somebody in-house that can be your in-house resource person. And also, when I work with groups, they're not only playing BOFFO, but in the process of playing BOFFO, they're learning all kinds of ways to catch the red light comments, catch the red light policies and that sort of thing that get in the way. And so it goes way beyond the game itself, in that there are so many other additional possibilities that will flow out of that. And also, after you have played this a few times, it becomes part of your language. So you can be right in the middle of a meeting, and maybe you're talking about marketing, and you say, well, this is our product. So let's say this is our launcher, and what boosters might we use to create our marketing campaign, something like that. There's just endless ways to do this, and the more you play it, the more skilled you become. And in the process, the more you literally build your brain, because everything that you're doing is making a new idea. It's new to your brain. You are creating new green light synapses. You're building your brain power.
Yeah, so it sounds like after you played it enough times, even without the game there, your thought process is already, that tool shed is there and ready to be used, right? You've created new synapses, just a whole new thinking center. That's what it sounds like.
Yes,
New problem
yes. And the
solving.
other thing is, every time that you're always creating these new ideas, so you are putting in more and more content into your brain, and you're putting in new things. Much of the time, we just bore our brains with the same old, same old. But that just doesn't happen here. So you are expanding the possibilities that your brain has to call on to create new ideas, to create new ways of interacting with people. And one of the beautiful things that often happens is that people who didn't used to talk to each other, might have even been enemies, you play this game and you're so focused on the fun of and the power of creating these ideas together that other stuff falls away, and you just start discovering, oh my gosh, we've got a lot of conversations to have here. And so it causes a unity of team and a strengthening of team by playing this game.
Nice. That's really great. So my purpose, my tagline, hang on. I have my daughter trying to call here. Let me turn this off. There we go. I'll call her back. My purpose that I've found is to connect women, or all people, but for me mostly women, to their virtue, to their power, and their purpose. And so my question for you now is, how did you discover this passion that you have, this purpose to coach people, to bring them together, to choose the better things in life, and then how does that fulfill your, I mean, usually when you find your purpose, all the world opens and expands. That's what it feels like to me anyways. Like the world is your oyster. So how does that work for you? How does it feel like for you?
Well, number one, this has been something I've been working on for decades, and I didn't know where I was going when I began, but all the way through in the different iterations before it became a board game, when it was a chart or when it was on a Rolodex or whatever, every time people would use the process, they would be excited. They amazed themselves, and that was joy for them, which was soul food for me. That was what I wanted, for people to recognize their ability to be creative on the spot and to be with people and to be in environments where that is valued and encouraged. So literally, every time I see somebody create an aha that just delights them, it is joy to my spirit.
That's what it's all about, isn't it? Just if we can all
Yes.
find that joy in our lives, our little lane of passion, then all of the world is blessed because of it. You know, we all can bring those together and just create this fantastic world. And that's what drew me to you the most, was that I could feel the passion in everything you had to say. I loved the idea. I loved, like I said, to strengthen my brain as much as possible. And so I've just really enjoyed getting to know you. I'm curious, how could somebody find you to learn more about you and also more about BOFFO and how to get a copy of the game or an app, whatever it is? I have a board game here in my office right now, so.
Great, yes.
Yeah.
My website is gogreenlightway.com. And on that website, you will find information about my book as well, Go, How to Think, Speak, and Act to Make Good Things Happen, which is included in the game. And you'll also find information about the app as well. And so some people are playing their app between the times that they're playing on the board game. But one of the things, too, that's really important to keep in mind is that when you get in that stuck space, you've had a tough day or something didn't go at all the way you wanted to, as soon as you sit down and start playing BOFFO, you are in the moment and that other stuff falls away. So it's a great thing to do to shift moods as well, shift conversations also.
It's awesome, yeah, when you can get that dopamine going, right? And being in the now, there's just something about it. I'm glad that you brought that up. That's fantastic. Is there anything else, Marilyn, that you'd like to share with us before we go?
I thank everyone who uses the BOFFO game, who uses the tools to create ahas in the moment, to build brain power, to encourage others to do that, and to start shifting conversations away from, the awfulizing of the disasters or the awful news that you just heard on the radio or television or whatever for the 15th time. No, instead the conversations are about, this is the launcher I had and the booster I had, and here's my aha, and what ahas could you make with that? That's an energizing, that is an earth-serving, a people-serving conversation. So thank you for everyone who does that and promotes not only more humane, more fun, and more productive conversations, also begins to change our entire cultural conversation.
How fantastic is that, right? That's what it's all about. Uplifting everybody. My husband always says, like the tide rises all the boats in the shore. That's kind of what we're all out to do, is by lifting ourselves, we lift other people. So I really appreciate your passion, your purpose, your insight, and your vision. And thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thank you, Carrie. It's a privilege.